It's finally that time again, and we are doing our first official garden tour of the 2024 gardening season. Welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Kayla. This is 5 Canadian Acres. My family of 5 and I are growing on about 5 acres. Of course, the garden's not that big. We are just west of Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and while we got upgraded to a zone 4, I still say zone 3 because of cold snaps we get in the winter. It's hard to overwinter those zone 4 perennials. So let's get started and see what's growing. We have a few things outside the greenhouse in their hardening off stage. These are just a mini snap mix of snapdragons. They need to be planted right away. These tomatoes never got separated. I'm just going to plant them and separate them in the garden and see how they do. And then up here we have some spearmint growing and oregano that is going to be planted pretty soon. And we'll take a quick peek around the greenhouse. These are my crazy tomatillos. They are really big, first time growing them, and they just grow like crazy. So I am going to plant these in the ground. I haven't yet because they do like it warm and our overnight temperatures are still pretty cool. We're still getting about like the mid single digits, like 5 degrees Celsius. And that's just, I don't know, I think it's too cold for these. I know tomatoes and peppers and melons, they like it like 10 degrees. So in the next week, it looks like we're getting upwards of, towards the 8s and the 10s. So I'll probably have to plant these here next week, just because you kind of have to make that sacrifice. Are they better off to be a little bit colder but have the space in the ground to grow bigger? Or are they better off to be stunted here in a pot and stay warm? It's kind of like a balanced decision I'm going to have to make. In my opinion, I think that these need to be planted in the ground. I mean, they already have these flowers. Again, I always kind of recommend to pull off flowers when you're planting them. I might pull these off. I don't know. I've got this okra down here too. It needs lots of newts, needs to be planted as well. We'll just get it planted and see what happens. Some more tomatoes here. And then if we go over here, just a lot of more stuff. We've got lots of peppers there to be planted. These are all my melons and stuff that I had planted in my newspaper pots. When I had my greenhouse freeze, they had just been planted and they actually froze. The newspaper is like the soil was frozen solid. I wasn't sure if they were going to sprout. I started a few more of the things I really wanted to grow, but everything seems to have sprouted. It's just a little delayed. It took a lot longer to sprout than I hoped. That's okay because they're not going to be planted for another week or two, so they have time to grow. We've got the watermelon and there's cantaloupe. These are actually zucchini, planting those out just as an experiment. I normally direct sow them. These are some peppers I'm actually just going to plant as a row, just like this, from this size, to hopefully get a lot. They are the cayenne peppers, and I want to make a lot of my own cayenne pepper seasoning this winter. This is that kind of samphire weird thing, and this is some blue vervain. This is a time that I actually had some ground cherries somehow get spread in here and growing. I'm going to leave these because all my other ground cherries died. So I got a few ground cherries there, which is nice. This little guy here, I think that might be a ground cherry too. So then these are some pumpkins here growing pretty good. They're going to be going out next week. If those paper pots work really well. Some more peppers here. Some carnations that are really not looking very nice. And then let's see what else we got. We've got lots of peppers, tomatoes, a whole bunch of different basils in this rack here. And then we have calendula growing good. Down there are all my cucumber starts coming along. And more tomatoes. I've been kind of clearing out these shelves because these are just a little bit too short. What I'm going to have to do, it's nice, I can actually drop these ones down. So I'm going to drop them down a bit to make more space because they're growing pretty big. Of course, it's time to really start hardening them off and getting them outside here. So that's going to be my project this week. I've started with some, but I kind of do them in rounds. And then I've got some milk thistle here. It's growing good. It's got to get in the ground, and then some dragon balm. And then we'll go outside because we have lots of things growing out here too. So these were the first seeds that we put into the ground here. And as you can see, everything is sprouted pretty good. Starting here, these are actually some zinnias that I had started inside, and then I went ahead and transplanted them because I want some pretty flowers here. I'm probably going to plant a bunch of seeds in to fill them in. And then these are the sugar magnolia peas that are growing good. They're getting close to being able to start to attach to the back there. And then, of course, you see all of the radishes are growing really well all along here. They've come in pretty good. You can see all these holes in them. Those are from flea beetles. I definitely have a problem with flea beetles around here. They really just go after them as seedlings, though. So if you can establish them, once they're established, they're not really going to eat any more of these leaves. They just like the baby leaves. So thankfully, all of these ones made it pretty good. And then interspersed, you can see all these. These are my Apache onions that I have just kind of planted amongst all of them because the radishes aren't going to get too big, and these are just kind of like more of a scallion. They don't get big either. So just to kind of use up that space. So those onions are part of that allium family. I like to plant those everywhere because they do seem to help deter pests. They have a strong smell and it can kind of keep pests away from smelling your plants. My saved sugar snap peas did not have very good germination. They were old, but we did get a couple. So I'll probably just go in and interplant something else throughout there. The chives here are looking pretty good. They're already starting to going to be blossoming right away here. As you can see, we have been harvesting it. Fresh chives are really good. We love them on our baked potatoes. This is the spinach here. It's growing really good. We're starting to get our, first set of true leaves and then that second set. And then as well, all the lettuce. This is what I used all that seeding square for. And I definitely do like the spacing, but I feel like maybe I could put one in each of these middle ones too. So like next time I plant, I think I'm going to like plant it a little bit more full. Not really much for germination on the radicchio. That's okay. We'll try and plant it again. And then these are the carrots. This is actually one of the little catkins that falls from my poplars, and this is havoc. It puts seedlings in all of my beds everywhere. That's okay. But I'm going to get down in here and you can see like right here and here, these are all carrots that are starting to sprout. So that is very exciting as well. This is actually a marigold that is volunteered. I'm going to leave those there, but we have lots and lots of little carrots germinated, which is really exciting. And then you see up the back there, those are all a snow pea, lots of germination on that one. And I had one little one or two, I guess. No, I think it was just the one of this sugar sprint, but it go ahead and sprouted pretty small. But and then I'm at the end here too. We also have the Swiss chard, which has come up pretty good. Down here, we have some cabbage that were planted. These are a tiara cabbage, so it is a hybrid, but I love them. They grow super, super great. They're not super huge, but they produce early. Like these will probably be in the next month. We'll be able to harvest a few of these. And actually see it interplanted here are some spinach. What I actually did was I transplanted some of the ones from on the other side where I had used that seeding square and we had just a few extra. Not all of them transplanted, like this one ended up dying. Put another one there, but a lot of them managed to survive because of course they're going to grow pretty quick before the cabbage gets pretty big. I'll be able to harvest these before that cabbage overtakes it, and then that'll utilize a little bit more space there. I have nothing growing up the backs yet. I'll see what I do with that. This here is broccoli, a Sun King hybrid, again a hybrid, but they grow really well, really fast. And hopefully, again, we're going to be getting some broccoli pretty soon. These were transplants, ones I had started and had inside. So they did pretty good. They didn't get much stress on them. Looking in here, I don't see anything yet, but that one's looking like it's doing really good. And actually along the front here, I had started some beets inside as an experiment. I normally, again, direct sow them, but I know a lot of people, actually this guy didn't make the transplant, I don't think, but a lot of people will transplant them. So we're going to try and experiment with that. And then over here, a few more transplants. These are some munchkin broccolis that made it, and these are some purple cauliflower. So we'll see if this one looks good. This little guy's struggling. This one looks okay, but something, I don't know, ate that leaf or something. I'm not sure. I'll have to keep an eye on it. So if you noticed, I have none of my brassicas covered. I have found early in the spring, they don't, like the cabbage moths aren't out. I haven't seen any of those little white moths flying around. So until I see them coming around, I won't have to cover these. Once I start to see them, I either have to cover these, or I'm probably, because I don't have too many up here, I'm probably just going to hand pick off the little eggs that I see. That seems to be the easiest for me. Now, when I plant my fall crop later on, I'm going to have to cover those right away because then the moths are out in full force and they will just get decimated. So again, that's just another reason to get these brassicas and cool weather crops started early, because you get a jump start on all of those bugs too. Okay, and then over here, I planted another set of carrots, but as you can see, these are all those little seedlings. They just come from everywhere. So I'm going to have to probably get into here because I just planted the carrots. None of them should be up yet. If I come in here and just kind of rough these up and get rid of them, I should be able to get rid of them. And then the carrots are going to be able to sprout afterwards. This is dry. It needs to be watered as well. There's nothing planted in this bed yet except my little overwintered onions at the end, which we could probably start harvesting. Again, I just use them kind of as pest deterrents, kind of around the edges to kind of keep them away. And then we'll turn back down here to my perennial bed. I didn't get a lot of things to come back, which is a little bit sad. That's okay, that's kind of how things work. Of course, the onions do really well. They're kind of crazy. None of the lavender or thyme has come back yet. You can see these little things popping up. Those are all raspberries. So we talk about weeds, and to me, a weed is something that just grows uncontrollable, that you don't want it in that spot. So for me, raspberries are weeds to me. They pop up everywhere in my garden, whereas most people might want to welcome that. And a lot of people think that dandelions or stinging nettle are weeds, but for me, I love it when they pop up into my garden because that gives me an opportunity to harvest them right out of my own garden instead of having to go foraging for them. So these raspberries, I'm going to want to come in and pull them all. This is my rose bush. I thought it was all dead. There are a few green spots on the bottom. So I actually came in here the other day to look. And if I went way down in here, I can see right here is a little bit of the rose bush growing. So I'm just going to let that grow. There's another green one coming off the other side. I might just have to trim up some of this stuff, but it will live. It's just going to take a little while to come back. And actually right in behind there, that's all the wild bergamot bee balm. It's just flourished. That stuff is super hardy. None of my lemon balm came back. Just my one nodding onion's kind of struggling along. I don't know if they're supposed to be bigger, but that thing's tiny. And none of the garlic chives came back either. I had ranunculus in all these beds last year. Nothing's been planted yet. I'm not sure. We might just do a whole big revamp up here again. There is some catnip in the back there. It's been living for a few years. But we'll see what happens with this bed this year. Not too sure. Well, we'll come back over here and start. I guess we could go to the table. Guess we got everything hardening off here. Lots of stuff growing. More of this wild bergamot. I'm going to maybe find somewhere else to plant it or maybe sell a few because I don't think I need more. Thyme here, we're going to find somewhere for that. I'm actually thinking with a lot of like my thyme and oregano and herbs, I'm just going to put in pots this year, grow them in big pots, and then either bury them and really like overwinter them and cover them, or even bring them inside to just be dormant over the winter in a warmer spot. But of course, I probably will also plant a few in ground just to see what I can do. These are marigolds, not really the best germination, and lettuce. Of course, I need to get out here and water. That sun really dries things out really fast if you don't have mulch. So they'll one of tomato that's hanging in there. This is some parsley. The lavender, a little bit of it died off when I had it frozen, but not all of it did. And this stuff is going to produce pretty good for me this year. Again, I'm going to put in a pot to try to overwinter somewhere else. A little bit of my anise hyssop made it. Catnip's doing good. These are some chives and onions, and celery all needs to get planted. Some cilantro, sweet alyssum, some comfrey, which I thought was dead, but I found it sprouted, so that's really exciting. What do we got here? This is a bunch of just plain old mint. This is some chamomile. I did plant some. I'll show you down below, but this is just some extras I'm going to give away. Got one little green onion there. Some lettuce. This stuff never got planted. And then the little hens and chicks. And then this is just a bunch more stuff I have hardening off. The chives are planted in the bed. These guys have been here for a few years, and you can see how much bigger they are than the other chives. And they're going to flower soon. There's my little, I got 3 garlic to come back out of this bed, which isn't bad because they don't really like raised beds anyways, especially up here where it gets cold. It was just an experiment. These tomatoes need to get planted. A bunch of onions need to get planted. Of course, that's why everything is out here being hardened off, because it is time. We got some peas I kind of started as an experiment. Try and plant those. And oh, this is my rosemary, which I restarted and got really good germination. And then this is, I don't even know what this is. I think this is an Armenian basket flower, but I only had one come up. So we'll plant that somewhere. Just a bunch of my tomatoes here getting some sunshine, starting to get hardened off because again, they are ready to be planted. And then these are the extra squash and stuff I had planted because I really wanted these kinds. And we got them sprouted, which is nice. So we'll be able to get a little bit more planted. Nothing is going here, just a big old mess, except I came down here the other day and you can see I have, this is chamomile that's volunteered because this is where I had my chamomile growing last year. So I'm just going to let these guys grow. I'm not sure what we're doing with this bed, but for now it can grow. This stuff all here is actually lamb's quarter, which is a weed, but I'm letting it grow because again, it's actually edible. So if we can put it in our salads, I've munched on it, or I can also feed it to my chickens and my rabbits. They really love that. And then my other random onion, you'll find those everywhere in the garden. Up here, another big kind of mess, but not really. My other little onion here, of course. But this is all stinging nettle. You can see it all has spread here and growing, which is really, really good. I've actually already taken one harvest off of this stinging nettle, and it's pretty much time to take another harvest. I love stinging nettle. I usually just make it into a tonic where you just kind of like let it steep overnight and drink it cold and infuse it. It's so high in minerals and vitamins and all that good stuff. You can make like nettle soups. I've never done any of that kind of cooking with nettles, but for my teas and tonics, I really love it. This bed is gonna eventually, we're gonna redo all this kind of area. So for now, this is my little stinging nettle bed where I'm gonna be able to do harvests all summer with it. And then over here, these are all a whole bunch of strawberries that when I cleaned up the strawberry bed, I picked up a whole bunch of the runners. And some of them look like they might not be growing, but most of them we have some good growth on. I'm actually going to take these down to some family here this weekend. It's May long weekend, yay! And we'll be able to spread some of these really good strawberries around. These are a couple of hanging baskets I made up. I had bought a couple of the petunias, those really nice trailing ones you don't have to deadhead. I think they're called like the bubble gum, and there's another kind. So hopefully, see here, there's a blossom coming. So pretty soon we'll be able to get these blossoming, and they're supposed to just grow nice and big. And these are the Rosy Falls hanging basket tomato. So I put way too many in there, I am sure, but I'm going to be watering this twice a day to see how much we can get off of this little one basket. And then this is all just kind of an open area here. We're going to be revamping most of it, but I do have a little bit over here in this crazy mess are my grapes up here in the corner. And I was looking at them the other day, and they are starting to going to be leafing out right away, which is very exciting. This thing has been growing here for, I want to say 5 or 6 years. I'd have to go back and look. You can see all my weeds here. All these are all raspberries popping up. I got to get in and pull all those. But the grapevine goes all the way up, and it goes all the way over. It spread really far last year. We actually are going to be finishing this area here, and the plan is to build a little arbor right here that the grapes can grow up and over that way, and it'll be really pretty. And then I do have raspberries. I was going to turn this into a raspberry patch, but they just get so crazy. I may still do it because these raspberries are going to produce this year. You can see how it has the brown stem. It's a second-year raspberry. And then if we go over here, these guys are all first year. So it's just going to grow up a big cane this year over winter, and next year it will produce fruit. So these second year ones, I might just leave to get a little bit of raspberries. We do have a lot over the property, but again, it's always nice to be in the garden and have a snack. Now it's very overgrown, but I did have 3 blueberry bushes in here. None of them have ever done really, really well, except this middle one has survived and given me a few blueberries every year, and you can still kind of see it in here, and here it is. It is leafing out again and gonna flower. So I do want to get this thing kind of cleaned up and let it grow. I might transplant it. It is a Chippewa blueberry, if anybody is wondering. For our area, I know blueberries are super hard to grow here, but this Chippewa has done the best for me. And then my apple trees, this guy died. I thought the other one would die. They've sat in these pots for a couple of years now, but it didn't. This guy is just growing. I started this from a random apple seed, I want to say 3 years ago, and it's just survived. It's been in a pot, so this year it's finally going to go into the ground. We had a really cold winter, and if this thing survived, it's really hardy. Now, I've been told, of course, that any sort of like apple you start from a seed might not produce good apples. It might not produce edible apples. I'm not sure, but I can use it for a rootstock. So I can plant it, get it established because it's really hardy. And then later on, I can graft other branches from other fruit trees, like other apples, onto it to be able to grow. So that's the plan actually. And what the plan is behind this bed, this little square, we're going to plant it right in there. We've got this one little, well, we've got a few little tulips coming back, not yet to bloom. It's been a really, really cool spring, so everything feels like it's behind. But we're getting along here. Like the dandelions have just started to blossom. But the cherry tree has started to leaf out. And you can see these are all the blossoms here. So very soon these are going to open up, and we'll have a nice pretty tree. Of course, I did do quite a bit of pruning off of it this year, so we'll see how well it grows, but a lot of it there is leafing out. And then down into the asparagus strawberry bed. It looks like a mess. I actually did clean it up, but it has just been out of control for the last few years. And so this is probably going to be the last year for it here. I don't know, we'll have to see, because this asparagus is growing really well. We've been able to do some harvests. You can see there's another patch there. And then down there, I'll show you closer up, we have the older stuff. And the strawberries are still doing really well. There's like a lot of them that have popped up and are growing. We'll get some, but just the other weeds, the quackgrass, the dandelions, the things that are just constantly trying to take over have been too much down here. Plus, it's pretty bad soil. We never really dug it out and added much to it. So we're going to just kind of let this go this year, and then we're going to be making another strawberry asparagus bed somewhere else. So what I'm going to do this year is, as the strawberries throw off runners, I'm just going to start putting them all in pots. So I'll have a whole bunch of pots, and then hopefully midsummer we'll find somewhere where we want to be able to have a new strawberry patch, and I can plant them all, and then they'll be ready to go for next spring. Then the plan's just going to be to rip this all up, and we're going to redo this whole area. Probably I'm thinking is just adding a whole bunch more raised beds in the middle here, so this will all just be raised beds. Now I have nothing planted in these 3 beds kind of. There's a few chives in that end bed there. And then in here, this is where I planted all of my, transplanted all of my beets as an experiment. I think they should have been a little bit bigger. I don't know, when I transplanted them, but I was just like, these need to get in the ground. These are the golden beets over here, which I love. So hopefully they'll grow and produce some beets. Oh, as I'm looking here, I just saw this is the first strawberry flower I've seen, guys. That means we're going to be getting some strawberries soon. That is so exciting. Over here, we'll take a look. This is the stuff that froze and struggled, and I'm trying to revive it. It is growing. It's kind of struggling a little bit, but I mean, I'm just going to let these things grow. We've got some cabbages, some other cabbages. The kale's probably going to come around, but I am definitely going to plant things up the back here and interplant as much as I can, just to utilize all that space. And then over here is a whole bunch of lettuce, and it's done really well. You can see this is a Paris white Cos, romaine. We'll be able to harvest some heads from that. This is a prized head leaf lettuce. It's growing really good. These will be a little bit different sizes. You can see I'll be able to harvest that one first, and this one will grow. I'll be able to harvest it later. And there's a little bit of Romanesco broccoli that's made it. I had some Red Express cabbage here. It did not make it. Here are some more lettuces. These are all romaine lettuces from Saved Seed. It's doing pretty good. This is actually a dandelion. Of course, I'm leaving it here because this is going to be so easy to harvest out of my raised bed. So to get a nice big root from that. There's a little bit of the Golden Beauty. It got a little bit decimated by the flea beetles, but it seems to be coming around. If you look in there, it's been a little bit damaged, but we'll see if it comes around. And then there's one little cauliflower here in the corner. And in the next bed, I have some kale in the corner. This is all a sprouting broccoli. I think there's a green sprouting one, and then the purple sprouting. But again, this is a weed here. This one has died. This one has died. So I'm just going to have to probably come in here and plant some more stuff. This is a Waltham 29 broccoli, so it's kind of hanging in there. So we got a few, and this one actually looks good. We'll probably be able to get something off of that. And then the rest, I'll just have to plant some more stuff. And of course, these onions are always looking good. Actually, I was looking the other day, and down in here, you can see, looks like it's going to be getting a flower here right away. Got some more raspberries here. I'm going to leave those because they're going to produce this year. And then the horseradish, it's looking pretty good, coming back strong. We'll let that grow up nice and big this year, and we'll be able to harvest some roots in the fall. I've actually heard you can use the leaves as well for canning. They have high tannins, which basically makes your pickles crispier, just like the bay leaves or whatnot you'd put in. You can use grape leaves as well. So I might try some horseradish leaves for that this year. Just walking over here to the other side, and these beds I've done all up. I've got the cardboard boxes. We're going to be filling them full of wood chips. Going to have to do that soon because you can see they're kind of starting to cave in. But these will be the walkways. I can just walk in the boxes. And I have all the potatoes planted in here. Nothing has sprouted yet. It has been probably a week and a half, maybe 2. So this is the point where I'm starting to get a little bit worried, but I just have to have faith. You can see, so all the green stuff here are just weeds. But what's nice is because we have like kind of tilled this, that I can just go in here and they're pretty easy to pull for the most part. I can just, see, usually you just pull whole chunks out, but I'll just take this whole chunk out because it's full of roots, and then I can just come back here and fill this in. So I usually just try to come in here as much as I can and pick all of these weeds out. And eventually these will be really nice no-till beds. I mean, I'm gonna have to dig the potatoes up this year, but that's the plan for all this. In this corner, I have planted my valerian. So this is going to be for the valerian root, but it grows pretty high. It's a flower. And then along this side is my chamomile. So that'll grow up nice too, and I'll be able to harvest that for some teas. And it's just, of course, pretty flowers to be in the garden. Nothing has been happening over here. I still got lots of cleanup to do. I don't know if you're like me, and of course, I'm feeling really behind this year. I do know we've had a pretty cool spring, so like a lot of the perennials are behind. Everything is kind of behind, but I guess we just have to kind of go in the rhythms of the year and realize that we're not behind. We're right on time with nature. It's just one of those years. This is all my garlic that had planted down below, and it's done really good. I'm actually really surprised at how well it's done. You can see most of the rows are actually pretty full. There's no weeds. That's all just garlic coming up, all that green stuff, just the garlic. Now I planted this really late. The ground was pretty frozen when I was trying to dig it in, but it did really good. I did cover it pretty heavily with straw, and then I uncovered it this spring so it could wake up, and it's doing really good. I've just redone all this bed's kind of the same. We're gonna putting wood chips for the walkways. I have a little bit planted over there we can go around and see. So I do have tulips in this bed, but they have kind of struggled. The quack grass, this grass just grows up like crazy. So you can see like right in here, that's a tulip right there. I'm just gonna let the tulips bloom. They probably won't be lasting more than a month, and then I'm probably going to just, I don't know if I'm gonna dig them up or just cover them, but this is all just gonna get redone. I have a little bit of work to do over here too. We'll come over here and you can see the catnip. It's growing really well, very, very hardy. Cats have been all over this every day and it still comes back. This yarrow is coming back. It grows up pretty good. It looks like not much now, but by the end of the summer, if you remember from last year, it just grows so big it falls over. And I've added some more yarrow, as you can see here. This is my colored yarrow. So we have, I believe this is the yellow stuff, or yes, I planted the yellow stuff here. And then over there is the red yarrow. And then you can see from this angle, I have nothing planted yet here. Just gonna continue on cleaning that up down there. And I think I actually might come in here and plant all my onions in this row just because I really need them to be planted soon. And it would be a good spot for them. Over here in my perennial area, I had some mojito mint. It didn't come back. This rhubarb is looking fantastic. I'm really enjoying it. I planted it last year, so it's very young still, but it's growing like crazy. I'm just waiting a little bit longer till some of these stalks are a little longer, and then we're gonna have our first rhubarb harvest, which is very exciting. And I had some borscht there. I'm just waiting to see if any of those seeds are gonna sprout. And then comes my peppermint. Of course, you hear everybody say how peppermint is invasive, but I've never had it come back. So I've been looking and looking, and I have not seen the peppermint come back. I'm like, oh, it's not invasive here, but I wanna show you something. So you can see here in the middle, I was kind of looking and, you know, I see some weeds and stuff. But then I'm like, oh wait, look, what is this? This looks like some peppermint, and sure enough, that's peppermint. And then I kind of keep going farther out, and there is peppermint, and there's more peppermint way out here. So this is how I'm learning it's invasive, is that like this peppermint started here and it's growing way out there at this season. So you could see how quickly it can spread. So while I'm still not super worried, I definitely can see how it can spread, and you have to be careful if you don't have a lot of space in your garden. So I'm just going to be, of course, harvesting a lot of it as much as I can. And then also if it grows a little bit of a ground cover, I mean, I have weeds growing everywhere. So I'd rather have a peppermint weed than say some quack grass. But yes, that's just a really good visual to see how far that it can spread. Like it's way out here. And then of course I have nothing in here. What I'm going to do this year is make a bunch of walkways kind of around. Maybe I can like put some stuff in the ground around it to kind of contain it a bit more. And then we're just going to plant a whole bunch more perennials here. And over here I had just a little bit of a regular mint. And I think some of it might have come back as well. If I look in here, like I think that is it. There's some nettle there, a bunch of weeds. So, but it's definitely not as much as the peppermint. Over here is my marshmallow, which I'm excited to say has come back as well. You can see this is all the marshmallow, the new growth growing. I started it from seed last year and I did not harvest any. It grew pretty good. It was really beautiful. I loved it. It's just always nice to see when they come back, and hopefully this fall I'll be able to actually do a harvest and harvest some of the root. And this is where I plan to plant my cucumbers this year. It needs to be covered. Just basically, I think for the next 2-3 weeks, we're going to cover it up because I don't need to plant my cucumbers right away. We still have lots of growing time. This is all going to be for my pickling cucumbers. So again, if I don't get them until, August, I'm not too worried. That's good timing. And then we swing around out front and you can see we've started to get the beds going here. Or I should actually say my husband has started to get the beds going because he's the one that has been out here doing all this. He basically just weed whacked everything and then raked it all so it didn't mess up with the rototiller. And then he's just rototilled everything. We also had a couple of logs kind of going across, and those were our expansions actually. You can see one of them here. We pulled those all out, so now this is all just going to be one continuous bed. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and shape it. We're probably going to make the walkways around the edge because we get a lot of weeds growing in here. And then we're probably just going to do what we did elsewhere, is we're just going to make our bed rows, put the cardboard down for our walking rows, and then really try to get into the whole no-till. Just really getting really good on the mulching and staying on top of those weeds before they get established. We also are getting a couple more loads of compost, which we did last year. It was really good. See, it's kind of low in a few areas. So we're just going to go ahead and top this up with compost. This is actually what I plan to be my crop garden. So I'm just going to have a whole bunch of rows of a bunch of things that I want to just be able to have big harvests of in order to be able to preserve. And raised beds are for eating. Of course, there's going to be crossover, but that's kind of the plan. And we do still want to expand down that way. We'll do that as we can. We'll see how much dirt we can get and how much time we have. There's our first garden tour of the year. We have just passed our average last frost date, and we haven't had frost in probably a couple weeks, and it's looking like no frost in the future. So it's really go time in the garden. There's still so much to plant and get ready, and also so much growing, and we're going to be coming into some harvest really soon. So be sure to follow along with all the garden tours this year. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.